Yeah, you said it.
Hey, this is Sports Slaw with Lomas Brown, the pro.
And Deb Schneider, I'm the prof. And together, we're the pro and the prof. So we're back at it again, Lomas.
Yes. Podcast number 45 now, Deb.
45.
Yes.
Yep.
We're climbing. We're getting up there and everything. A lot to talk about.
Absolutely. But, you you just came from youth sports in Hamtramck. Tell me what's going on there.
Oh, man, it was great. And, the thing that impressed me about Hamtramck, for a lot of people that don't know, is it's mostly Arabic community. But just the mixture of kids there. It was blacks, it was whites, it was Arabics. I think Hamtramck is one of our cities here in Michigan that does a great job of kind of blending, all the races and ethnicities together. And they should be commended, because it was a great turnout with the youth today. We're trying to make sure we get as many youth out there and playing as possible, because they've been shut in and shut out because of this COVID situation we've had for over a year now. It was just great to see the kids out there, and there was a number of parents out there too, which is always a great support unit for a kid to have their parents out there. So it was a great day. A lot of kids out there, a lot of fun. Kids was having 80-degree weather today in Detroit.
Perfect.
So it was a perfect day to be out in Hamtramck, Michigan.
Okay. So one of the things that I found this morning, Michigan is, by the way, for everybody, Michigan is the best place in the entire country to get COVID now. Number one. Right. Number one to get COVID. If you want to get COVID, come to Michigan.
Yes.
That's what they're saying. And they're also saying that it's being driven by youth sports.
Yes. It was a big thing, Deb. Yesterday, I did a nice event with the governor. Of course, her and her teenage daughter got their first vaccination shot over at Ford Field. And I was there kind of emceeing the program. And you're right, Dr. Caldoon, who's our state doctor, that's what she said. She said it was driven by youth, but youth sports is what really helped, this pandemic kind of increase in the state of Michigan. And you're right, we're number one right now. I think our cases have tripled?
We're back to where we were in December.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen. It's all over the news. And there's, we talked early on that we were very concerned about the coaches.
Yes.
What do you feel? What was happening today with the coaching and everybody?
Again, most of the youth were masked up. I didn't hear a lot of coaches really say anything about that. Of course, the coaches, they were masked up out there today. But I didn't hear a lot of complaints from the coaches. I just think, now, put it this way, a lot of them had either had their first shot, we're waiting on their second shot. It was a couple of them that were fully vaccinated, that have gotten both shots. But I didn't hear a lot of grumbling about what was going on with the pandemic here in Michigan, or those coaches being afraid to coach their kids. They were out there with the kids, loving them up and doing what they normally do with them. So, again, the thing I try to encourage, and I tried to encourage yesterday when I was with the governor, is it may not be for the person that gets it. It may not be the youth. The youth have to look out to protect our older, vulnerable society of citizens. That's who I think about more so than the youth, because when you're young, you could shake off a lot of things. And of course, there hadn't been a lot of death that come out of any of our youth having the COVID. It's been most of our elderly and most vulnerable. So they have to do that to protect their loved ones.
Right. And now we're seeing more hospitalizations in the 30 to 40-year-olds. We're seeing, I keep going down that path of what's going to happen this year. Obviously, my daughter's a high school coach. All the high school sports are getting out there, the outdoor sports.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we're going to have regular seasons? Or, I know we were doing tryouts, and she had 10 girls who weren't able to make tryouts.
Yes. I mean, Deb, I definitely know from listening to Rod Wood, president of the Detroit Lions. He said there will be fans in the stands. And again, we're talking professionals. So the professional leagues, which we know professional leagues have the money to pay for vaccines or to pay for testing and do some of the things that they have to do to keep the players separated and safe. So they have the money to be able to do that. The question you're asking is if our youth, if our high schoolers, if our middle schoolers, will we see sports on that level? And I'm afraid with the way things are going right now, that could be in jeopardy. I mean, we're ways away from the football season starting, but you got basketball, you got some of the other things that are other sports that are going on right now. And I think it might be in jeopardy of those sports having to be stopped. And that's the nightmare for parents, because you know how some of the parents, we had a throng of parents that went up to Lansing and were demanding that their kids be allowed to play sports. And I really think that's good for kids to be able to get out and play sports, because, man, just sitting at a computer for school and all the other things, I just think it's, they need to get out and burn that energy off.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a very difficult thing. I don't think any of us really expected Michigan to be leading on COVID. And I think we're all trying to figure out why and what's happening. I mean, the governor's done a great job on keeping everything closed, and youth sports was not where I expected to see the increase coming from.
No, I agree 100% with you. And you're right. She has done a fantastic job of, putting restrictions on us, trying to keep us safe. You see some of our sports now where the kids are required to wear masks while they're participating in sports. And I know that would be a hard thing for me to be able to do, trying to breathe and do all those things. But that's just how strict she's been with trying to protect people here, but yet and still we're getting this outbreak. And it really is puzzling. I don't think they really have an answer to that either.
Yeah, that's a problem. I don't know how we solve it or what the reason is. We got to talk to Doc R again.
I know we do have to get a conversation.
By the way, he was on live in China last night.
Oh, wow. So he's doing it. Doc is taking it to another level, huh?
He's taking it to another level. So that's awesome. So in addition to the youth sports, let's talk about the topic du jour, Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Moving the All-Star game.
Yes.
Very controversial.
Yes. Let me ask you, anything legally you can see coming out of there? Did Atlanta have a leg to stand on as far as if they wanted to try to block Major League Baseball from leaving there? I know that it hurt the economy down there in Atlanta, or maybe not hurt the economy, but it's taken a nice chunk of money out of the economy out of there. Was there anything legally that Atlanta could have did, or the state of Georgia could have did to try to keep them there?
Not pass the voting rights restrictions? Did I say that? I mean, that's ultimately what it's about. From a contractual standpoint, which I think is the question that you're asking, actually. Yes. It would really depend on the contract that they had, but I'm pretty sure Major League Baseball, as all the leagues, have the ability to move their games if they deem it warranted. So and Major League Baseball is moving to Denver.
Yes.
I believe, where voting rights are very, very different. But this is such a controversy. I mean, it's a culture war, isn't it?
Yeah, oh, without a doubt. I mean, again, Deb, and I don't know whether the Denver was it next in line to get the All-Star game after Atlanta. Maybe that's why they moved it there and moved it up. But you're right. I mean, again, you just look back at the history of the Deep South, especially Georgia and some of the southern states, and how they've been in the past. I mean, yeah, the Democrats have Georgia now, but it's still a state that's still, yes, exactly right, where the Republicans are so strong there. And, and again, not to get into a Democrat Republican thing, to me, it's a moral thing. Especially when you start talking about restricting people voting rights, certain things that they can and can't do, and I really don't understand why, it was necessary. Well, we do know why after this last election, how it was said that, it was some cheating done. But again, for Georgia to go to where they went at, to bring in new laws, or Governor Kemp to sign these new laws, I just think it's wrong. I just think morally, if they look at things instead of looking at it the way they did, I think they might have tried to do things a little differently in Georgia, but they chose the way they chose, and it really cost them, not just from losing the All-Star game, but from how the state of Georgia is perceived too now, in my view.
Well, it's interesting because the All-Star game was moved, and I always go back to powers of the commissioner and the personality of the commissioners in these. And Commissioner Manfred, he was really in a difficult spot. I mean, he really is in a difficult spot. He's getting a lot of corporate pushback. And this, I don't think we can discuss this issue without actually saying politics, corporations, politics, business, and sports are completely integrating in this particular situation.
Absolutely.
And, the corporate pushback from Delta Airlines, from Coca-Cola, saying they're not going to support, they're going to pull out, which of course gives pressure to Major League Baseball. Should the sponsors have that much power? What do you think?
Well, again, when you talk about professional sports, we know how big of a piece that corporations play in that. And it's been like that for years. It's been like that, seemed like forever, that the corporations play a big part in, generating revenue, actually helping them with their TV rights too, the corporations, because the TV people or broadcasters are looking at some of the sponsors that the Major League Sports can pull into the fold. So you're right. I think they've always intertwined to a certain extent, but now you kind of see them really, really being forced to be intertwined because of what's going on, like you say, with a lot of the pushback that's going on with some of these big corporations, crossing over into politics, and and just about doing the right thing. And don't forget, Deb, Manfred, he has the deal with the players too. So, he has another element that he has to deal with besides the corporation, besides the TV people. He has to deal with the players. You got the number of, I don't know what's the composition of Major League Baseball as far as minorities compared, because we know that football is probably about 70, almost 80% Black, but he deals with Hispanics. He's dealing with Black. So he has the look out for the players. Plus, you're talking about their PA too, the Players Association. They have a big voice, a bigger voice. I think their player association is bigger than any association, including football, basketball, or hockey. So he has a lot to deal with, and he had a lot on his plate. And I do think personally, they did the right thing, because they do need to send messages that to some of these people with hidden agendas.
Right.
I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I think from a business standpoint, he probably was looking at where's less risk. wears less risk, and coming out in favor of the voting rights is, that's what we are also seeing. Roger Goodell from the NFL came out with a very strong statement in favor of voting rights and said that most of the NFL actually helped with voter registration and voting in the last presidential election.
Absolutely, they did. They helped get people out to the polls. I think I would say that the NBA did the best job of promoting it and getting it out there. But the NFL players, they did a very good job too of trying to get people out to vote, trying to get some of the stadiums to be registered voting places where people could come at. I do think Roger Goodell, he has a strong voice in this, but I just think Manfred, in the PA, I think they just have such a better relationship than say Roger Goodell has with the NFL PA, to things getting a little contentious with them. We know that Major League Baseball might be talking about them. I'm not really sure, but they might be talking about looking at the CBA, doing some things like that. But I just know the relationship. Yep, it is. It seems like it came fast, Deb. It really does.
I know. And CBAs generally last longer in sports, but this one, it's up at end of this year. They've already started some of the negotiations. The owners want the 50-50 split in the compensation. The players have rejected that. We're talking about they've got to come up with something, extended postseason. I mean, we just saw that in football, right?
Yeah,
extended season.
And I love what LeVar, our intern, did, where he's saying that 57% in baseball are white, 31% are Hispanic, 7.7% is black, and 2.9% is Asian. So you're talking about a whole different continent that you have to deal with, that you really have to keep a PR relationship going with. So, so different compared to football. Like I say, when you have 80% of the players are black, it's just almost a different dynamic that Rob Manfred had to deal with compared to a Roger Goodell, what he has to deal with.
But I will say, to the credit of both of these commissioners, they've come out with very, very strong statements in different ways about these voter suppression laws.
Yes.
And it's not something that's going to go away. Because I think we have over 250 is the last time I saw different laws or different pieces of legislation which have been introduced in various states, all dealing with basically voter suppression.
Yes. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. It's going to be interesting. It really is, to see how everything play out between the leagues, and particularly how it plays out with politics. Are they going to get involved? It's almost like the NCAA, when we talk about them, they're inviting the politicians to come on in and help them make some of the decisions of what they want to do with the name, image, and likeness. So they're really kind of inviting the politicians in, where you kind of see that the professional leagues, they really don't want that element to creep into their game, even though it is, they really don't invite it in like the NCAA is. Right.
Well, I mean, we saw that with Colin Kaepernick and former President Trump, and we saw it with, and we're seeing it. President Biden has come out very strongly in support of Major League Baseball over this.
Yes.
Former President Trump has come out very strongly against Major League Baseball.
Exactly.
And there's your culture war. So if you're Rob Manfred, do you attend the Masters?
Ooh, yeah. That's a great question now. Yeah. I mean, and again, I just think when you talk about the Masters, that's just, are they, to me, Deb, are they immune to the politicians getting in there? How can how can that be legislated? I mean, don't you think golf is kind of immune to it, or no? I'm just asking your opinion on that.
No, I think golf is, remember, golf, the PGA was for Caucasian males. I mean, that was the genesis of the PGA, is golf for Caucasian males. It wasn't until 2012, I believe, that we had the first woman who became a member of Augusta. Condoleezza Rice. So, I mean, it's taking a long time. Golf has taken a long time to be integrated. Obviously, we have Tiger Woods, and we've had some golfers, but overall, it's one of those sports that I think probably is ripe for some good old-fashioned diversity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, we seen that right in NASCAR.
Yes.
With Bubba Wallace, with what went on with him, and the Confederate flag, and and some of the pushback that he got. It wasn't all daisies for Bubba Wallace when he made those statements. He got a lot of pushback on that, and still today, I mean, I think they lost some fans over that, not being able to raise the Confederate flag or to be on NASCAR grounds. So, again, you see how this race is creeping into everything. I mean, I think about NHL hockey, and they had what they were going through, especially when and I guess what triggered this, Deb, is probably I want to say the George Floyd incident is really what just kind of pushed everything to a head, as they would say, and kind of steamroll this into all the sports. If you think about it, I mean, it permeated in all sports, soccer, NHL hockey. I mean, it really did. And, and I just think that's the thing that kind of pushed this to the forefront and really forced it on people.
Right. Sports Business Journal, which, by the way, is a fabulous publication, has an entire issue. This week's issue is all on diversity and how all the various leagues are dealing with it, saying that, realistically, in general, they need to do more. And they need to do more. I mean, we're starting to see more diversity, but like the NFL is saying, let's take that Rooney Rule and let's extend it beyond just head coaches.
Right. I mean, they have to. I mean, because again, you don't have enough coaches in the pipeline. And when I say that, you don't have enough offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators of color in the pipeline that you can push up. It's enough out there, but again, they have to take that and they really have to get behind them. And we're not saying give them an unfair advantage. They just want to be invited to the table and given a fair shot at it. And I think a lot of the coaches, I know that it was a special on HBO where a lot of the coaches that did get interviews felt like that they were just given interviews just because it was protocol, just because the teams had to, and felt that the teams really didn't have any intentions of hiring them. They were just there because that's something that they had to do. And that's wrong. That's wrong. Things like that have to be taken out of the process, out of the interview process, to where all the candidates are sitting on the level playing field, as we like to say. It needs to be leveled out. Best man wins.
Yep. Or woman.
Yes, or woman. That's right. And it's more and more. I was watching Jen. Oh, God, she's one of the coaches. I was actually watching a little video of her teaching guys how to tackle. She was teaching Tyreek Hill and some of our famous NFL players on how to tackle. And she I mean, it was awesome to watch. So you're absolutely right. Women, they're kicking the door down. They're not just standing back on the sidelines. They're kicking the doors down hard to get in there.
Yeah, we're certainly seeing. I mean, what an interesting, conversation. An interesting time. We have the George Floyd trial going on right now. We have diversity all over. We have voter suppression rights. We have the leagues taking stands on this. All great. And we have we have baseball starting right now.
Yes.
Okay, so flipping it a little bit.
Yes.
Texas Rangers have 100% capacity at their stadium.
Not shocked. Not shocked at all.
Not shocked.
I'm not. And Deb, if we remember, again, our great intern LeVar, I remember he brought to the forefront episodes ago where Florida played Texas A&M in a college football game during the season. And, our Florida coach got in an uproar because it was probably 50, 60,000 people in the stands. And they felt like that was an unfair advantage. And this was right in the midst of COVID going on. So I know the Florida coach that next week he came out and said that he wanted to have a full stadium because he felt like that was an advantage for Texas A&M. So I'm just not shocked that that's going on in Texas. And it'll be interesting to see what happens, when this, especially getting all these people together, is almost like a petri dish, right? When you think, you got all these people sitting there and being exposed, not probably social distancing. So it will be interesting to see what comes out of this.
I'm thinking we should just title this episode Culture Wars in Sports.
Yeah.
We've talked about voting rights. We're talking about diversity. We're talking about COVID. We're talking about the differences in opinions. At most Major League Baseball, which is really where, that's the sport that's starting right now. Everybody's ready to get going. We want to get back. And Major League Baseball, we have the players, some who are, just across the entire spectrum, from anti-vaxxers to, sign me up as quickly as possible.
So
teams.
My question to you, can a team force someone to get vaccinated? Can that happen? Do you think that can happen? Do you foresee that happening? Because again, it's going to be with us, Deb. They are already talking about we may have to take a booster, even if you've been fully vaccinated. You might have to look at taking the booster in probably about 6 months because all the different variants and everything. So, do you see anything down the line where it might be required in the contract that guys have to get vaccinated? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a pretty hefty employment law question is what you're asking. If you're working in healthcare and if that's a condition of employment, for instance, in healthcare, when your nurse has to have a flu vaccine, your nurse has to have certain vaccinations. That's something they do all the time. I could see that as part of a requirement for a job. And I think that's where we're really starting to see, we're going to start seeing some litigation on that. And not just in sports. We're just going to start seeing some litigation. It's because it's a question, like you said, do we make everybody get vaccinated? Which of course is a whole public health issue, as we've talked. Right now we're allowing people, encouraging people, but not forcing. And obviously there's a problem with forcing people to do something. Now, if it's a condition of employment, that becomes a slightly different situation.
Yeah. And I could see that. I think you're right. I could really kind of see that. Again, I just go harping back to back in the 90s when Bruce Smith mixed the playoff game with the Buffalo Bills because he caught the flu and he couldn't be around the other teammates because they didn't want him to get the rest of the teammates sick. And I think he actually missed the playoff game. And I just remember Wayne Fonts pretty much making it mandatory that we had to get flu shots because again, what happened to Bruce Smith? So, and you're talking about the flu, something that I guess it could kill you.
It could kill you, but
yeah, but it's nothing like what we're dealing with this COVID. So, I guess I could see where it could be something that may be mandatory. The teams really, really highly suggest that you go out and get vaccinated.
Yeah, well, carrot or stick. I think the Reds, Cincinnati Reds, are offering discounts if you can show your vaccination card to the fans. So there's another. I mean, and then we start talking about vaccination passports, even to get into sports.
Yes.
Some of the B-roll that Ray, our producer, was just showing was the travel out of control. I mean, that does not look like social distancing to me.
No, it doesn't. And I know a lot more places are starting to mandate, again, just like you're saying, travel. I think in the coming future, you're going to have to show that you are vaccinated to be able to do some of the traveling that you've been able to do in the past. Of course, I kept my card, that shows, and that's my proof that I have been fully vaccinated. And I think people are going to have to start showing that. We know it was I think it was the Yankees earlier this year, for the fans that were able to attend the game. They had to show that they were fully vaccinated before they could come in the game. And I'm quite sure that didn't sit well with all the fans. I'm quite sure they heard about it from some of the fans that weren't vaccinated, that they felt like that was unfair. But I think that seems like the direction we're going to be moving in.
We're back to the culture wars.
Yes. Yes.
Culture wars in sports. So much.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And even there, but if we look at, again, how the draft is going to be held, which me and you, I think we're on the same page. We love the virtual draft. It gave us a chance to see these guys a little bit more up and close and personal, kind of see their surrounding, some of their family. So we really didn't have a problem with that. I know all the scouting combines for the NBA, all the players had to do it at their campus. It was no combine like they normally have in Indianapolis, where all the players, the top 200 and some odd players, get together so they could showcase their skills. So now you incorporate a lot more traveling for some of the coaches, for some of the scouts, because they have to go on all these different campuses to actually see the guys that they want, or test the guys that they actually want to pretty much try to draft. So I know that's been different, but I think I like how the draft is virtually. I think I don't have a problem with a virtual NFL draft.
No, the NFL did an absolute fabulous job. They really, really did a great job on that. But that then brings up the whole question of travel is making me think about things like, we NCAA March Madness. We did it basically in a bubble. Mm-hmm. And we did the men's in a bubble. We did the women's in a bubble. The women's bubble wasn't quite as nice as the men's bubble, but that's another. But from a travel perspective, doesn't that make it somewhat easier from a broadcast standpoint? And from a money perspective, I think we want to travel around because there's more money that you bring in. Or is there?
Well, I think broadcasting is going to be different. I'm really interested to see how we do things this year, but I think it's going to be different. I really do. And it didn't seem to affect the play. I mean, we got some great games, especially the semifinal game before the final game, Gonzaga versus UCLA.
Was that a shot or what?
Deb, that probably was one of the best games. I mean, it had everything. It had overtime. It had large leads that had to be overcome. It had great individual players. It had great coaching. the coaches did some great jobs of coaching these kids. It was phenomenal. So, and even from the women's
coming
side,
down to the last shot.
Yes.
And what a shot. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and even the women's game, I watched that game, the 1-point victory by Stan. Your team.
Yes.
Hey, a proud Stanford alumni, but that was a great game.
Oh my gosh, I was dying. And that was only because Arizona missed the shot.
Yeah. It was great. So we're getting some great sports out of there. We're seeing these coaches at their best. We're seeing these athletes at their best in this bubble. So I think it's going to be a long, hard look at that, But again, I just, you got these big. What do you do with these big monsters of a stadium that you have already out there built? Some of these stadiums that they're upgrading. That's going to be my question: is how do they handle that? Especially if they're talking about doing bubble situations. And what do you do about home field advantage? Do you take that out of the game? Is that taken out of the game forever? And like I said, it's no more home field advantages or no more home crowds for each other.
I'm going to say we're going to get back because there's too much money invested, and there's too much money with having the different teams travel and have their home court advantage. And like you said, I mean, we lose, getting back to the beginning, Major League Baseball moving the game from Atlanta. There's a lot of revenue that's been lost, a lot of revenue.
Yes.
And that hits people who really shouldn't be hit. I mean, it hits the parking lots, the parking attendants. It hits those local restaurants, as well as, potentially corporate sponsors. Right thing, wrong thing. It's a difficult. It becomes difficult when you look at all the collateral damage, shall we say? Yeah,
and who I think one of the biggest gainers from this has been your live streaming people, your Amazon, your Twitter. Some of those, I think they're the ones that are big winners in this now. You just seen Jeff Bezos jump into the media contract with the NFL, giving up Amazon paying $10 billion just to carry one game, every week, one NFL game. So it seems like that may be the direction that we're heading into with these mainstreaming, these live streaming going on too, Deb.
Yeah, well, it's going to be very different. I mean, the NFL definitely planned their attack on how they were going to come at the rights, looked at the rights that they had to sell, had a huge team working on it, and it wasn't an overnight thing. It certainly wasn't an overnight thing. That was set up for at least a year that they were working on renegotiating those contracts, figuring out what they could sell, splitting the rights, and saying who's going to get what, to come up with basically the largest broadcast contract ever.
Yes, ever. I mean, 110 billion over 11 years, 10 years?
Right. I think it's 10 billion a year. 10 billion a year. And they looked outside the mainstream.
Yes.
I mean, they're setting the standard. They're setting the standard for everybody else.
They really are. They really, really are. And again, you got guys like Jerry Jones, one of the great marketing minds. I mean,
yes,
this guy's been in the forefront of marketing for the NFL since he basically became an owner. And did you know, Deb, I just found out recently that any team that builds a new stadium or relocates or, that does anything like that, all the owners get a payday out of that. If a team relocates, each owner gets a percentage of that money. If they build a new stadium, each owner gets a percentage of that money too. I know that's the way it is in the NFL. I'm not sure about other sports, but it's just amazing all the little things that they think about and ways that they're thinking about and ways they can profit off a stadium being built or a team relocating, just like when the Raiders relocated out to Las Vegas, just like
They're
when
still
San
the Oakland
Diego.
Raiders.
Yeah,
They're still the Oakland Raiders.
they'll
Okay,
always
they're
be
going to be the Oakland Raiders.
That's right. You're exactly right about that. You're exactly right.
Right. Okay. So, final thought. Do you think the NFL was lucky in terms of timing and how they came about with the season? Because everything kind of rolls in. I mean, we had a full season with the NFL. We had the Super Bowl. We had, everything worked. Was it luck in terms of timing because of when COVID came, as opposed to, say, NBA or NHL or any of the others? Or was it that they just did that much of a better job?
Wow, that's a great question. I'm gonna say a little of both. I think they did an outstanding
That's like,
job.
it depends.
Deb, I think they did an outstanding job, but I do think they were lucky because, again, they got an opportunity to see some of the other sports that happened before them. They got a chance to game plan a lot longer before the season started. But again, we had a couple of episodes during the season where, of course, our team, the Detroit Lions, they were basically without their whole coaching staff. It was the Denver Broncos one game this year. They didn't have any quarterbacks. Exactly right. They had to go up with a backup punter or somebody they went with as their quarterback for the league. So you remember when we first started, we said the positions that couldn't be affected that we thought were the quarterbacks and the offensive line. We thought that in football, all the other positions you could kind of fill in, if you were missing a player or two or missing some of your players there. But the two positions that I felt that it was quarterback and the offensive line, that the guys were irreplaceable, so we'll see. I mean, I do think it was a little luck with those guys, especially when you're spitting and breathing on guys and this physical contact and you swapping blood and, all those things. And for the NFL really not to have.
Know about.
Yeah, a lot of things we don't want to know about. And for them not to really have any positive cases like that, not really, because a lot of that was out of contact tracing.
Right.
They were just taking precautions.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Seattle, fabulous job. The Seahawks.
Yeah. What do you think? You think it was a little luck, or do you think it was them just doing an outstanding job?
I think they were lucky in terms of timing because when COVID hit, they had just finished the season, finished the Super Bowl, and every other sport was starting getting ready. I mean, COVID hit in March, right? March and April. So we just about had opening day. We were finishing up with hockey. We were finishing up, basketball. So all these things hit at a time where the NFL not happening until August, September. That was lucky. That being said, I think it was brilliant planning and brilliant work on the part of the NFL to recognize what needed to be done and to do that, from the draft to the contact tracing to how we're going to play the games to figuring out that broadcast was going to be the next, I'm going to say the next frontier, if you will. So I agree. A little bit of both.
Yeah. and I do think that you're right. They benefited from the standpoint of knowing more about this disease and how it was spread. Because remember, when it first came out, there was so many different, things that were put out there about COVID. And, the scientists really didn't have a grip on what this was. And, so you're right. I think it is, it was the luck of the draw that they got an opportunity to see other sports kind of go through this. And, they started figuring out and knowing more and more about this disease and how it affects you. And along with the doctors, along with our medical society too, because there was a lot of things that they didn't know about it in the beginning. So, yeah, I do give them the benefit of the doubt for that.
Yep. So Great conversation tonight. Culture
Yes.
wars. Sports is the uniter. Let's hope that we all get back and that we can unite and not have sports split us apart.
Yes, that's right.
That's my fervent hope that we will all unite. If it's behind sports, I'm for it.
I am too, Dale. I am too. And we need the fans back. Sports needs the fans. It's such a big ingredient, such a big missing ingredient. So fans out there, please take your shots. Get vaccinated so we can get you guys back in the stands. We miss you guys in the stands.
Absolutely. Okay. And check us out on Facebook. Check us out on SoundCloud. Check us out on Spotify and on sportslaw.com.